Welcome back to Boys and Ghouls Film Review, folks. I'm your host, Sarah Stephenson. This is my co-host, Mike Stephenson.
Hi, guys.
And tonight we'll be reviewing Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. That was released in 1986.
Exactly.
Around the time I was probably born.
Yeah, you were actually. That was the year first contact.
Yeah, but this is not the reason why we're reviewing it. We're doing it in honor of a recent departed actress who starred in the Star Trek in 4 or 5 episodes of this.
Yeah. What? All episodes, not 4 or 5 episodes.
Well, I meant the movies.
No, she was in the whole TV series, the original one, and I think all or most of the movies. I can't remember.
Not all of them.
No. The last movie she wasn't in. Yeah, last couple. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, irrespective, we're talking about Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura.
She passed away this month, and it's really sad.
Yeah, it's sad. She's she had a good life. She did a lot. They didn't give her a major role like Shatner or Nimoy or anybody else, but I think she stood her own, and she filled in the gap there as a co-star quite nicely. Yeah. So this is a tribute to her. We're not going to do all of the Star Trek movies, but we thought we'd pick one of our favourite ones.
Yeah, the one that has her starring in it, anyway.
Well, she's in this one, yeah.
Starring as a co-star, obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why we're doing it. See, and by the way, I think a couple of people have already passed on. I think... we were talking about the other night. Did you say DeForest Kelly, Bones is dead?
Yeah, Bones is dead. Liam...
Scotty?
Yeah.
James Doohan?
Yeah, and... let me see. Leon...
Who? Leon?
Not Leon. I mean, Leon...
Who? Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard Nimoy.
Leonard's passed away a couple of years back.
He's been in a lot of stuff and made a few guest appearances here and there, willy-nilly, just to keep himself, his character or himself known.
Yeah. Anyway, they're all dropping off. Yeah.
It's kind of sad. There's only let me see. There's William Shatner who's still alive.
He's still around.
And let me see that Sulu, the actor who named George
Takei.
He's still alive.
Walter. The Russian guy.
Yeah, Walter, the Russian actor who played, what's his name? Chekhov.
Pavel Chekhov.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Commander Chekhov.
Now, let's get down to nitty-gritty. I know this one was done by the Spock for, the directorship.
Can I actually go through what I normally do? That's my bit, and then you do your bit?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, here we go. Produced by Harve Bennett. Directed by Leonard Nimoy. Story by Harve Bennett and Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
Screenplay by Steve Mearson, Peter Crykes, Nicholas Meyer, and Harve Bennett.
Sweet.
I think the original scripts were done by Steve Mearson and Peter Crykes, but didn't like them that much that they rewrote them, and so where Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett came into the writing team to try... breathe some life in it, head in the right direction. And obviously it's based on the Star Trek, the TV series made famous by Gene Roddenberry.
As you guys well know, I've been watching the Light and Magic TV series, about the documentary about how they got started, and that one of their major projects was working on the Star Trek's movies, some of them anyway. And this is one of them that they worked on.
Yeah, can I go and say a bit more now?
Yes, you may.
Okay, the budget was $26 million. They kept it to a tight budget too. They say cut a bit of cost here, reusing some old props or whatever. Box office at $133 million, so $26 million to make and $133 million at the box office ain't too bad. And obviously it has home media on top of that as well. So this is the 4th instalment of this Star Trek franchise, and it's a sequel to Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, and actually completes the story which actually began in The Wrath of Khan. So you got The Wrath of Khan 2, Search for Spock 3, and this one sort of completes the story. So 3 movies. A reminiscent of Star Wars having all these different movies
jammed into it.
Bookending each other and different things, Now, I can't say too much before Sarah takes over. There it is. Yeah, dissatisfied with the first screenplay produced by Steve Mearson and Peter Cry, Experiment hired the Wrath of Khan writer Nicholas Mayer to step in and help rewrite the script.
Cool.
They actually started off. They did want to write a storyline which didn't have any nasties in it, like fighting, blasting, killing, and that sort of stuff. And they thought they could see the idea on an environmental problem, which hence is a little bit different than normal.
Environment in problem.
Yeah. And they thought about deforestation and stuff and blah and this, and they come on. Oh yeah, whales. Why not? And they got on the idea of the theme behind the story.
Yeah, because in this one it deals with. Well, I'll give you the cliff notes.
No.
It deals with a spacecraft that comes to their
You're going
area.
to tell the story in a minute.
It's an unknown vessel, and they don't understand why it's come. And this is where Kirk and his team have to find out how to resolve this issue.
Yeah, it's destroying our planet. Now, by the way, before I go any further, this film was dedicated to the crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger, which broke up 73 seconds after takeoff on the morning of January the 28th, 1986. So our hearts and minds go out to those people, our prayers as well, because, they died to me as heroes. So
yeah.
And here we go. The main stars, obviously.
Yeah.
William Shatner,
we know him.
James T. Kirk. He's an Admiral now. He got promoted. The funny thing about this one too, he wasn't going to come on board for this.
Really?
Nope. He had a pay dispute.
Oh.
So he said unless he received a salary of $2 million, he wouldn't participate in the movie.
Man, you go very skeegee.
Yes. And et cetera, et cetera. But I'll mention something else about that later. Leonard Nimoy comes back here as Spock, obviously. DeForest Kelley plays Leonard McCoy, Bones, the physician. James Doohan as Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty. George Takei plays Hikaru Sulu. Walter Koenig plays Pavel Chekhov. Nichelle Nichols plays Uhura. And our special guest in this one here, Catherine Hicks, she plays Dr. Gillian Taylor, a cytologist, I think it is. She knows about whales. How's that?
This is called her a whale expert.
Yeah, a whale person.
For those who don't understand what whaling is.
Yeah, that's how to whale at the time. Now, what I was going to say is, because the pay packets were going high on this, they wanted more and more in these movies. That's when they started the new TV series, Star Trek: The Next Generation or something or other, with new actors, because these ones are starting to cost too much money.
Well,
so, interesting that.
Well, yeah.
Well, you can get it when you can get it, hey?
Well, get what you can afford.
Here's something here, a bit of a... now, during production, a rumour circulated that the part had been given to Catherine Hicks after Shatner demanded a love interest.
Oh.
A regular aspect of the television series that was absent from the first three films.
Well, there was one in
that was a rumour. Nimoy, Leonard Nimoy chose Hicks after inviting her to lunch with Shatner and witnessing a chemistry between the two. So was there any hanky-panky behind closed doors? We'll never know. Hey?
I hope not.
Anyway, here we go. I've got no more to say at this point in time. Do you want to take over telling the story, little one?
Might as well, guys. Might as well. So, the story begins. I'll do the prologue for you guys. There was this Genesis planet that somehow was created because of Khan and yada yada. And then Spock, during his
At the end of the last movie, Spock died.
Yeah.
And then this planet had a special thing called Genesis bomb set off on this barren planet and brought life to it. But they also buried Spock on that planet. They sort of rifled down to his body, his remains, and they thought that was the end of it. But they found him later on at the end of the movie as a small boy, was it a baby or something?
Yeah, and Spock's memory and spirit somehow gets placed in bones for some
for
kind
storage.
of creepy reason.
Oh, that's stored in his brain. Yeah.
Somehow he was home. His mind was inside bones.
And they passed on. That would have happened in the previous movie though.
Yeah. And then the crew had to go back to Genesis to relocate Spock's body and restore his memories into Spock's mind.
Yeah.
And eventually, his body grows from a kid to his
adulthood rather quickly. Well, that's what Genesis is all about.
It really evolves
it's like
really
a clone
fast.
of the original guy.
Yeah. It kind of really evolves the planet.
Let us move on with the story of this movie.
Anyway, soon enough they go back to the Vulcan planet, and where they do a restoring memory transferring thing ritual, whatever, which eventually does work. And unfortunately, a few things had to be resolved, like he knows about Jim Kurt, obviously, because they're best friends, but some things have to be jogged back into memory.
Had to be relearned, and the academic stuff was okay, but all the personal stuff, because he's half human and half Vulcan, and some of the human bits, he's those sort of memories are a little bit sort of, I'm not real sure on this.
Yeah. Fortunately, they are in big trouble because they broke several rules, and they're placed on exile on Vulcan because of their disregard to, not following orders.
They weren't on exile. They were hiding out there, fixing up their spacecraft, and they were having a vote to go back to and face a tribunal to have them judged accordingly.
Yeah, they stole
they
hijacked a Klingon plane or ship,
spaceship, bird of prey, I think they're called.
Yeah, and called it Bounty, HMS Bounty.
Yeah, Mr. Christian. Yeah, okay, right.
Anyway, back to our story. Back to the present. There's this weird ship hurtling towards Earth, and every time it passes another ship or a shuttle or anything in this,
it drains all its
it
power.
Drains all its power, and they're running on almost emergency power, which is next to nothing when you think about it.
Pretty much.
Anyway, as the trial progresses on Earth, Spock's dad is coming as ambassador to try to plead Kurt's case. Of course, the Klingons say as long as Kurt lives, there's no peace amongst the Klingon guys.
Yeah, with the rest of the world. So declaring war, declaring war against the rest of the universe. How's that?
Yeah, that's roughly is pretty much it. Anyway, back on Vulcan, the guys are resolved to go back to Earth and face the tribunal or whatever.
Tribunal.
Yes. And Spock, he's resolved to come with them because he feels like he wants to offer testimony. His mother asks him, "Are you doing this for friendship?" And he says, "I'm doing this because I was there." He's very logical after all.
Exactly.
Even though his mother tells him that he's half human and he's still rebuilding his mind. So bit by bit, he still has a little bit more work to do. Wouldn't you say, Mike?
Well, like I said, he's a work in progress. Yeah.
But he works really hard in this one.
He does, yeah.
Anyway, they get on to the spaceship and they make their way towards Earth slowly.
And when they get there...
Well, before they get there, soon enough, this big major spaceship arrives and starts draining the energy off the planet, causing the whole place to go into blackdown. Yeah, blacking out the electricity, any outcoming message, communication, whatever. It starts causing interference with the cloud coverage. It starts raining heavily, and soon enough, whatever things on that spaceship is kind of trying to get into the water, into the river,
it's aiming a beam of energy at the ocean, trying to communicate with something which they don't know what it is.
Yeah, they tried to communicate with the vessel, but unfortunately the whatever language they're trying to talk to is gibberish.
That's not gibberish. They're not getting a response.
Yeah. Meanwhile, while this is happening, when the Kurt and his friends, they get several transmissions from other ships, and they all sound just like gibberish, as Horror says when you say, and she's trying to work it out.
No, there's lots of radio transmission activity, and they're crossing over each other. Everyone's hitting the airways at the same time, and she couldn't isolate what they're talking about.
Yeah,
that's why it was gibberish.
Yeah, soon enough, the president, who was at the Starfleet Federation,
waiting for Kirk to show up.
Yeah, and finally, he sends a stress message to all ships, telling them not to approach Earth because and conserve all their energy on
and
their
go away
ships.
because the Earth was under attack and blah 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 blah, and may not be around.
Kurt reasons that maybe we should destroy the ship, but there's a big chance that their ship will be drained too. So they have to figure out what it wants. They think that Spock says that these messages may not be hostile. Doesn't sound like it. So they decide to find out what those messages sound like underwater. So
that's where the beam of or energy or communication or whatever it was being aimed at our oceans.
Yeah. So Uhura was able to figure out what it sounds like underwater, and it sounds just like humpback whales.
Yeah.
And
Spock
Spock proved that by going to another computer, which kind of identifies the very similar sound waves to sounding exactly the same.
Yeah, whatever.
And they worked out that there has not been any humpback whales on Earth for so many years
because we hunted them to extinction.
Yeah.
Aha.
And they realized that while there's no other species on other planets, so technically they're in a very loose end.
We're screwed.
Yes. Yeah. So they have to find some, but not in this time. They have to find it in the past. And fortunately, this ship was able to get them there eventually. And which they did. They have to use the sun rays.
The gravitational pull of the sun. They did a slingshot around the sun by using the gravity to increase their speed so they can reach whatever speed it needed to break through the time barrier.
Yeah.
Now, I've always wondered,
what's that?
in all these movies where they've done this sort of thing, let's try time travel, let's go around time, let's get the speed, how they actually control in which direction they are going. Are they going forward? Are they going backwards? Are they going sideways? And what year?
Do you want to question it? Because I don't think I want to.
Now, every movie they say, oh, yeah, we did this. But how?
Yeah. And how far back will you go?
Yeah, they could have gone back to dinosaur age for all I know. No, well, there you go then.
Yeah, and who knows if whales... I think whales have been... They did say whales have been around longer than human beings.
Yeah. They
were like a longer species to humans.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe they've been around during the dinosaur age. Maybe.
They could have been.
I don't know.
The dinosaurs of the sea. How's that?
Anyway, back to the story. They eventually do this, and they finally arrive to Earth back to 1986, I think.
Yeah.
Roughly when this movie came out.
Well, they came back to the then real current time when they're making the movie, so... Because they did a lot of location shoots, they thought, well, it's a good idea to have the same time, so all the sites they're using current.
Yeah, well, it would make sense considering if they did it, say it was 2000 and something, whatever, who's to say it would have changed? I mean, years ago, they would have said a few years later, and they think we're still wearing our current... Our clothes haven't changed, but they have changed in the if you were filming a film in 1950s, and then you fast forward to the 1960s or 1970s, and you find out the clothing has changed. Not sci-fi change, just slightly different. Styles different.
Styles, yeah. Okay, you get on with it.
Okay. Anyway, so they found Laura was able to locate some whales. As it turns out, they're in San Francisco, and Kirk thinks, "Oh, this is strange because wouldn't they be out in the middle of the ocean?"
No, they had located some whales at San Francisco in the Bay Area, or it must be a bay or something.
Yeah.
And they found that there's a marine. What do you call it? No, marine park. What do you call it?
Never mind that. I mean,
Yeah.
I still have some more stuff to tell you.
Yeah.
Scotty has another difficult problem for them. See, the Klingon crystals on the ship have been drained, which is caused by the time traveling thingy wing, and that means if they're technically they still have energy, but they don't have enough energy to take them back to their prior time.
Yeah, but why it's going away with enough energy to even take off?
Yeah, so they have to find some radium. Is that radium?
Radiation.
Yeah, radiation.
Some sort of, they mentioned photons and different things and whatever.
Yeah. They think radium might likely be able to charge up the ship and be able to save themselves and get them back in their own time. Aside from that, they have to also get a tank to make sure the whales won't be,
They just can't strap them into a seat, and they need to put them in a big fish tank on the spaceship.
Yeah, so he leaves this up to Scotty and McCoy and not Slulu to go locate a tank, while Uhura and Jekov, they go and look for the radium somewhere. Radiation.
Whatever it is.
Stuff, which is located...
Not radium. Okay?
Which is located on some Navy freighter thingy wings, or boats anyway. Yeah. And Spock and James T. Kirk, they have to go find the whales. Yeah. So they land in a park and where they're invisible, just so you guys know.
They actually land in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, and they use a cloaking device to stay invisible.
Unfortunately, it does leave a big dent in the ground.
It's rather heavy, yeah.
Yeah, and it does cause a bit of stir with some local garbage men.
Scared the crap out of them.
Got them scared, especially with the door opening.
Exactly.
Can you see a very big light coming through? So they head off into San Francisco City, and it's very noisy. There's a lot of cars, really noisy.
You know what it's like, folks. Peak hour.
Yeah, get away! Type attitude.
Stop it. Carry on.
It was very crazy, and even a couple of guys called Kurt double dumbass on you or something like that, or that's what he says anyway.
Call him a dumbass. Okay,
and
that's fine.
They realise that they're in a big snag here because they don't have any cash, and therefore they have to go find some. So Spock and him go off to pawn something while the rest just stayed behind, and they were able to pawn off some 18th century glasses that Kurt got as a gift, I think it was.
Yeah, McCoy, Bones gave him a gift. I think when they Benjamin Franklin's glasses or something.
Yeah, and he says the good thing about this is there'll be a gift again in the near future.
Ho, ho, ho.
And of course, it's not very much. I said that if the lenses were intact, it would be a lot more. So it's like roughly $100.
Back in those days.
Back in those days, and it's not much. So, $100, and each one gets money, and this is only for transportation and probably a bit of food, maybe. But bear in mind, I don't know how they're going to be able to swim away a tank in such a small, immediately amount.
Okay, look, just get on with
it,
please.
So the guys went their separate ways. Eventually, they found out where they located the whales. They're in a special aquarium.
That's what the word I was looking for, an aquarium place.
Where they house two whales called George and Gracie. And so Kurt and Spock, they head on down to the Institute, where they cause a bit of a scene with Gillian, the expert on whaling.
The whale lady.
Yeah, she was annoyed with Spock's direct behavior, where he goes inside the whale tank and tries to mind melt with one of the whales.
And he had a bit of a chat with him as well, mentally. So he let him know. Was the boy one or the girl one?
I don't know. I can't
Doesn't
tell.
Matter. He told him what was going on somehow or other.
Yeah, I think it was the girl one. I think she would have been the one that told Spock that she was pregnant.
Well, the daddy whale would have known his wife was pregnant.
Anyway, meanwhile, while this was happening,
he was there.
Scotty and McCoy and Sulu, they were able to find the glass place, and they're able to get the guy, the organizer, to make sure that they have a tank that has its specific dimensions that they require, and including
he didn't get a tank from he wanted them to make the glass the panels so they could make the tank.
Well, anyway, they told him that of a particular design that could be a few inches thicker, which will allow them to probably make the owner the wealthiest person in the world. And McCoy asks Scotty, "Are you sure we should give him the formula?" And he says, "Why? How do we know he didn't invent it?" And they realize we could be doing the future a favor.
Exactly.
So anyway, they get the tank organized with them, and Sulu was able to find a helicopter that will possibly be able to sort of transport the tank over to their ship eventually later on. Meanwhile,
for those of you who are in the military stuff, it's a Huey helicopter, I believe.
Yeah. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Uhura and Chekhov, they're trying to locate the Navy base in Alameda.
Alameda, I think Alameda.
But of course they have direction problems. But eventually they do find it, and they tell Kurt in a transmission they'll beam into the Navy Reserve and get the things they need, and then beam out. No one will know.
Yeah, whatever radiate. Obviously, it's not shielded like it is nowadays properly, and so there would have been a bit of radiation leakage. And whatever the leakage part is, they're collecting in a special handheld little machine.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah, Gillian, who eventually finds Spock and Kurt later on after this, wants to know how they knew about Gracie being pregnant, because only a few people probably knew of her pregnancy.
And as Spock put it so succinctly, she told me.
Yeah.
That went down well.
She didn't buy their lies, the fact that
the story, not their lies.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't tell the full truth, did they?
Yeah, they only said that that they're there to try to save these whales and try to get them away to their world.
Yeah, put them in a safe place so no one could pick on them.
Of course, she thinks that, seeing as Spock says a couple of times that Kurt is an admiral, and she probably thinks that he's part of a Navy or Army thingy wing.
Navy thing.
Yeah.
Trying to use them for salvaging torpedoes and yada, yada, yada.
Which is not the case.
No.
Anyway, eventually, during dinner, she was able to work out the truth from him by saying that he was from Iowa, that he works in outer space, and therefore he needs to get 2 humpback whales, travel them to the future in order to save their dying race. Or not dying race, they're endangered. Their Earth is in danger, obviously.
Yeah. So she finally believes him.
Yeah,
eventually.
to an extent. And meanwhile, while this is happening, let me see. Chekhov and Uhura, they're on board the Navy base ship, and they're getting the uranium, whatever.
Uranium, okay.
Uranium, and they eventually
Adam Curie did radium, okay.
Okay, they eventually get what they need, but unfortunately, the remaining beaming on board was easy, but getting them off board is a difficult challenge.
Running out of power.
So Uhura has her turn, but Chekhov doesn't get so lucky, and thanks to his Russian accent, doesn't really help very much.
Yeah, the American Navy Security Patrol think he's a Russian spy. Funny that, hey?
Yeah, especially what's been happening at the moment.
Shut up about that. I'm talking about his Russian accent, okay?
Shh, calm down.
Gee whiz.
Anyway, it doesn't do so well, and he eventually tries to run away in the normal sense, but unfortunately, he hits his head and falls, and his condition is, what's it again?
Critical.
Yeah, meaning he could easily die.
He broke some bones and stuff and got some head damage and whatever.
Yeah, and of course they're prepared to take him to hospital, yada yada. Meanwhile, on board their ship, they try to locate for him, but with no success because their ship is still weak and there's no chance of finding out what happens to him, until the next morning. Meanwhile, the next morning, we find out from Gillian finds out that the 2 whales, George and Gracie, they have been shipped off in the middle of the night.
How rude.
It was rude. She eventually goes to the park where she last saw James Kirk and tell him the bad news. And eventually she gets beamed aboard, and she's pretty shaken up when she finds out it's all true. What he told her about being from outer space and all their advanced technology. And this is the first time she finds out Spock is a Vulcan.
See, he had his ears covered up before.
Yeah, see, he wore a bit of a bandana, I think it is.
Not a bandana,
oh, not bandana,
a headband.
A headband to conceal his...
You have got no idea.
Calm down. Sheesh. You take things too literally on this channel. I keep making mistakes, and you point at them too much, and it annoys me.
And you pick at mine all the time too.
I'll kick you if you don't shut up. Anyway, so they found out that where Chekhov is. He's at the hospital, and his condition is bad. So, James, Kirk, and Gillian, and Dr. McCoy, they all head down to there, dressed as doctors, obviously, and head down there. And of course, McCoy is devastated by their inefficiency at the hospital because he's annoyed at their fact they're working like medieval doctors.
To him,
it is medieval. And he even comes across a lady who has kidney dialysis.
She's in the hospital for kidney dialysis because her kidneys are stuffed or no longer in her body. I do not know whether they've been... later on, there's a mention she's regrown a kidney.
Yeah, thanks to McCoy.
Yeah.
And eventually they find out which room, the operating room, is Chekhov in, and eventually they use a gurney. Is it a gurney? Yeah, a gurney. And pretend that Gillian is a sick patient, and they get on board of an elevator, and they encounter two other not nice doctors who think McCoy is a crackpot for thinking that he thinks all their Marbo Jumbo is a load of bull.
Yeah.
Anyway, they get into the door. There's policemen there, and they say, sorry, you cannot go in there, but eventually...
They bluff their way through and they get into the...
Yeah. He blushes by saying that Gillian has cramps.
No, he didn't. He said it in a medical term.
Yeah. I read somewhere online one time during comments on YouTube, some guy said as a medical student, used those terms, and his friends didn't know the hell of what he was talking about. It was hilarious.
Yes, whatever.
Anyway, he goes and meets the doctors, and the doctors think he's a crackpot and tells them off. And he tells them off, saying that that drilling holes isn't the answer. The brain has to be repaired. And he says, "Put away your butcher knives and let me save this patient before it's too late." And James Kirk quickly, using his little device, his ray gun, to point them into another room, and zaps and melts the lock.
The lock.
And eventually...
it's better than melting the doctor, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah.
And so McCoy begins to repair the brain to Chekhov's mind.
A little device he puts on his forehead.
Yeah. And
very nice.
And
I want
it
one.
works. Yeah. And eventually they slowly push the gurney, the new gurney out. And one of the policemen says, "Hey, you entered with a she." And Kirk says, "One little mistake."
Yeah. Bugger.
Eventually, there's a bit of a brief police chase scene, and eventually they get off on an elevator, and eventually when the police get to the other floor,
there's no one in there. Obviously, Scotty has been able to beam them out.
Yeah, and eventually they head on board to the ship, and Gillian wants to go with them, but unfortunately their last stop is the 23rd century.
Whatever.
And that means that if she goes with them, she'll never go back.
She says there's nothing for me here, and you're going to need a whale person in the future.
Yeah, at first he says, "No, you must stay here," and eventually she jumps into his arms, and they end up beamed aboard.
She got beamed aboard the spaceship.
Yeah,
and,
he gets annoyed with her, but she says, "You need me," and he tells her to take a seat. And they start making their plans of finding George and Gracie, which they do find it because...
they'd ship them out to the Antarctic up north.
Antarctica, whatever.
Circle, whatever.
And eventually they do find the frequency that's on those tags that the whales have.
Yeah, so many megahertz, whatever. They got the right frequency for it and everything.
They also find out there were some whale pirates in the area.
There's whale hunters.
Whale hunters in the area, and they make plans of... targeting both the George and Gracie, but unfortunately, they get scared off by the spaceship, and
they turn off the cloaking device, and they're right above the the whaling boat and scares the crap out of them. Again, hey, we got to scare the crap out of the garbage guys and scare the crap out of the whaling guys.
Well,
not bad.
In this case, it was a useful technique.
Yeah.
Anyway, eventually, they were able to beam both George and Gracie on board, and of course,
And a bucket load of water.
yeah, because Scotty was worried that aside from the whales, they have to beam so much water.
Oh, yes, every tons of water, gallons,
Yeah.
litres, tons, water, yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, one thing that bugs me on that,
What's that?
whales breathe air like we do.
Yes, that's true.
And from what I can see in those big containers, there wasn't much room for any air for them to breathe.
Oh, you do have a point, Mike.
So I'm just a little thing.
Well, you do have a
I'm
point.
pedantic
but
sometimes.
I imagine this won't be. There won't be. They'll probably have to hold their breath for a bit, and not to mention they won't be allowed to breathe through that air hole in the.
Well, I know.
for a while.
I didn't notice any air at the top of the tank.
Anyway,
Yeah.
it's not
Just
important.
a little
They
observation.
didn't. Well, as your observation details, there's a big chance that they'll dump the whales into the water before anyone even has a chance to breathe. Anyway.
Well, we like to think so.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's a dead whale.
they begin to they begin to head towards the sun and do a loop around
Another
it again.
slingshot job.
And they eventually arrive into their present.
Exactly from when they took off, from the same minute almost.
Yeah, and eventually they arrive back, and of course their ship is hurtling towards the water as they speak.
Because they was too close to Earth, and what happened is this big, funny spaceship probe thing
Yeah, the spaceship, I
took
told
all
you.
the power out of them as well when they arrived back there, so they had no control over the
Yeah,
spaceship.
so they quickly hurl towards the water, and they begin to make plans of evacuating, but Kirk has to stay behind to open the hatch to get the whales out.
They landed in San Francisco Bay.
Yeah. So while Gillian and the others they evacuate out there through the hatches, Jim was able to open the big hatch door, and so the whales could get out. Of course, when the whales do get out, one of the whales suffers from a little bit of travel
sickness, maybe. Yeah, it wasn't feeling very well.
Yeah. Eventually, the whales were able to communicate with the
probe.
and finally convey to them that we are here, we're okay, and therefore
Everything's fine.
Could you guys go away because you're damaging our humans? So,
yes, nice whales. See,
so
they're nice.
the probe eventually closes up shop and leaves, and eventually the clouds cleared up, and the communications and the electricity returns to the Earth and all the space shuttles and everything.
And space stations, as they go, where the probe leaves, everything goes back to normal.
Yeah, and the whales go on their merry way. And then we cross to the tribunal.
Well, Federation Council Tribunal, I think.
Yeah, and where the president of the Federation, whatever. Tells the group that they pretty much did a lot of crime. They
all
broke
the naughty
a lot of
things.
rules.
All the naughty things they've been accused of have been dismissed, except for one.
Yes.
Now that is
regulation and orders.
Admiral Kirk's failure to follow orders, and he alone.
Oh yeah, we forgot another rule. He's been littering in the water.
Okay.
Oh, that's one rule. It's wastage in
littering. Yeah. No, but anyway, so he is solely being charged. His crew's been exonerated for all the other stuff. But here we go. Take it over.
So Kurt is been demoted from being admiral and now has become captain.
Captain again,
which is okay for him, I guess. And
it was a
desk job.
He didn't like it anyway, and he said it was demotion, but it was done in good faith because that's what he's best at.
Yeah. Anyway, so
he's a field man.
Yes. He then makes his final farewell to Gillian, and Gillian goes off on her science vessel, to where she can learn a little bit more about.
She's got to catch up on the current science of
current events and current other stuff. And they make their final goodbyes, and meanwhile, another set of people are having to say their final goodbyes. Spock is talking to his father, and how his father told him that he thought at first about his son joining the Space Federal guys, and he's changed his mind because he realized that he's doing a good job at what
And
he
thought he didn't think it was a good decision years ago, but now he thinks it was a good decision.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
we're good people.
Yeah. Instead of the usual hugs or kisses, his father and Spock do the usual live long and prosper
Live long
symbol.
and prosper with the old hand and the fingers, Yeah.
And now that's been dealt with, the crew and Kirk, they head off to look at their new ship.
Which is drum roll. The Enterprise.
Yes.
They made a new one for them.
Yeah, home sweet home, according to Kirk.
And they take it out for a burn.
Yeah, and that's
Let's
the
see
end.
what you got.
That's the end of the story.
Okay. We've got a few minutes to have a chat.
Yeah, let's go for it.
I won't say too much, but I've got lots of notes here, so I'll skim through some of it. Most of this was location shoots. Where the other movies weren't. Now, that was a bit of a change. They did a lot of it, most of the real buildings and whatever.
And the futuristic buildings would have been all matte paintings.
Well, some of the matte paintings were done. Where they did all the street stuff, that was done in real street stuff, mobile units. The aquarium was a real aquarium, but they made that big whale pool as an extension to it somehow or other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You superimpose that in and whatever. And,
I see.
Different things. Yeah, so they did a lot of it actually on location. The Federation Council room was actually built in the studio, that sort of stuff. But all the other stuff, on location, and it worked well. They even used the real aircraft carrier.
Cool.
When they went inside it, I think that was actually a real aircraft carrier they were allowed to shoot on.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, I think. So they did a lot. Industrial Light and Magic were involved with post production and some of the film special effects. Some of the humpback whales were real, but a lot of them animatronics, and the animatronics worked really good. You would not know they weren't real. These guys were good. I won't go into too much about the story writing, but pretty much the first script was crap, and then Leonard, Herve, and the other guy got stuck into it and fixed it up. Nicholas Meyer and Harve Bennett, they got into it and fixed it up and made it what it is today.
You know what I like about the movie? I like the quotes from literature and other things, right? That they bring up in the dialogue here and there. It's really cool. I mean, I also liked how both Star Wars and Star Trek, they both use Navy terms to describe, ranks in the movies.
It's all done Navy stuff, yeah.
Yeah, it's Navy stuff. Instead of, I'm not sure of what they would use for pilots in the Air Force. Maybe not really.
No, well, admirals or captains in charge, Captain Cook, that captains and admirals and whatever, and you had all those different ranks. They had ensigns, and that's all naval stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but because it's a naval fleet in space, pretty much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I won't go too much, but they did reuse a lot of props and sets from previous movies as well. So that kept the cost down a tad. So they reused it nicely. I can't say too much without going into a lot of talking and just drag on and on and on. So I'm glossing over it a little bit.
I was just thinking, we were discussing this not too long ago, guys, that whether it was made by the guy who did Land of the Giants or the Doctor Who thing.
Alan Irwin, yeah.
But do you think that maybe some people who may have worked under him may have also worked on the Star Trek movies or TV series?
Well, no, what I would suggest is probably Gene Roddenberry and his show, Star Trek, was on about the same time as Land of the Giants and the other TV series that Alan Irwin was actually making. So there's a good chance that maybe they inspired each other. They might have known each other.
Yeah, because it makes me think of the that Navy TV show you often told me about. They ought to watch, but I haven't watched.
Voyage 1 and C.
Yeah, it makes me think of that when I think about Captain Kirk exploring the galaxies.
They bravely go where
and all that stuff.
we've never been before.
Space,
Sort of,
the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Yada, yada, yada.
Anyway, I'm not going to talk into all the special effects and crap and everything else because there's a lot. But they did, like I said, they did reuse a lot of this stuff from previous movies, which did help. They did modernise some of it. They did make a couple of new sets, but main thing is Industrial Light and Magic got in there, and they got some decent animatronics people in there to make the whales appear real, and they were. I actually got a marine biologist guy to help design the whale models, so it wasn't just some guy there making a skeleton and throwing some rubber stuff over it.
Well, that's the thing about Light and Magic. They're always about trying to keep it real a little bit, to an extent.
Yeah, okay.
While at the same time, maintaining its fantasy look to it.
Now, the aquarium they used, for those of you who might live in the area, was actually filmed at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. If it's still there, I don't. They actually used that, and they used some computer-generated stuff or whatever, superimposing to make the big whale tank. Yeah. What else? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, interesting. The real Enterprise, the battleship they were going to use, was out at sea at the time, was unavailable for filming, so the non-nuclear powered carrier, the USS Ranger, was used instead. How's that, Rabbit? Okay, they did a lot. Again, like I said, a lot was done on location, which is excellent. They really... scenes in the San Francisco Bay were shot in a tank at the Paramount's backlot. So at the end of the movie, when the spaceship was crashed on in there, that was actually in a tank.
I see. I figured that. I mean, I don't think they would have crashed in the real San Francisco waters, when you think about it.
No, but it was actually done to be tank. And, actually, here's some other bit. Since the Voyage Home was the first Star Trek film to show the operations that Starfleet Command, Bennett and Nimoy visited NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to learn how a real Deep Space Command Center might look and operate. So they took it from real life sort of stuff and then brought it to the film.
Cool.
So they didn't make it up. They did some study. They did their homework, folks.
That's the thing about that. They always like to do their homework first.
Blah, 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 blah. There wasn't a lot of use of matte paintings in here for backdrops or whatever.
Can we look at the reception side?
I'm going on that now.
Because I would like to see what its reception of, being a franchise.
Tell you what, though, save me reading for us rubbish. I usually get a lot of my stuff from Wikipedia and different other places, but Wikipedia has a lot of stuff on this. If any of you want to have a bit of a read of it, go on and have a look. Because it goes on to, we did this, and this is how we did that effect, and something else, and yada, yada, and it goes on and on. There's so much involved with it, you think, wow, that's how they did it? Never thought about that. And now here we go, where's the reception? Sarah likes this bit.
Well, okay. Most of them.
Most of it's positive.
That's relief.
And I say most of it. And I do mean most of it. Here we go. Rotten Tomatoes. Film holds approval rating of 82%. With an consensus read, Star Trek 4 is perhaps the lightest and most purely enjoyable entry of the long-running series.
Okay, that's always good.
Audiences polled by CinemaScope gave an average grading of A+ on an A+ to F scale.
That's good.
The Washington Post said something... one of the series' strongest episodes and proof that the franchise could weather the absence of space-bound action and the iconic USS Enterprise and still be highly enjoyable.
I'm glad someone enjoyed it.
New York Times admitted that the film's plot was demented. No, wait a minute.
Huh?
Wait a minute. Yeah, shush. The New York Times admitted the plot was demented, but they have done a great deal to ensure the series' longevity, which means they still had a good storyline.
Good.
Yep. Okay. Christian Science Monitor has a note here. Praised the film for giving audiences a view of their modern life from a different perspective.
Cool.
The Courier Mail, I don't know if that's Australia's Courier Mail or whatever, wrote that the film was funnier than its predecessors, and while not flippant, a sense of humour was relevant through the efforts of the cast, writers and the director.
Let's see.
Newsweek's David Anson considered Voyage Home not only the most light-hearted of the movie franchise, but the most true in spirit of the original television series.
Good.
Now, here's a negative one, and it's really not that negative. The guy's an idiot. A more negative review was offered by Liam Lacey of the Globe and Mail, who wrote that under Nimoy's choppy direction, there was a lack of comic timing paired with feeble humour. That's about the only negative one in there. So, honestly, the guy's a twit now, because everyone else likes it.
Yeah, I mean, they probably thought the timing was great,
Yeah,
and
it worked.
the
And it wasn't a comedy.
yeah, and it's supposed to be
Yeah, it's not a comedy.
yeah, it's supposed to be
It's light-hearted.
lighthearted.
Yeah.
A little bit of lightheartedness works.
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
it. Yeah, there's a couple of little one-liners here makes it funny, and yeah, it's not a comedy. It's a space. It's a light
A space opera.
space. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I think I even found out what space opera means
What
now
is
that
it?
I've looked it
What
up.
is it?
It's a mixture of adventure, romance, a bit of drama, and all mashed up into...
And a sex scene maybe occasionally.
No sex scenes. Just mentions romance.
I like sex. No.
And I guess that's what it is. It's a mixture of adventure, excitement, a bit of sci-fi stuff thrown in, and just a mixture of everything in it to make it look great. So I don't know why they put an opera in there. Don't ask me why. I would think it would make a little bit of confusion amongst people who may not know what a space opera is.
Yeah, whatever. Now, okay, special effects. I won't go through all of them, but most people like the special effects. There you go. Now, availability. Drum roll. Okay, right. eBay, there's plenty for sale. Amazon, it's rentable, and they got a few for sale there as well. Keep an eye out. I didn't see too many, but there's the odd VHS copy running around, being an older movie. So, having said that, there might even be a Laserdisc running around there. So if you're going to buy a copy, have your eyes open. You don't want a Laserdisc unless you've got a Laserdisc player, and you certainly don't want a VHS or a beta copy. I've never seen any beta copies out there.
Yeah, and for those who haven't watched the other two movies and think if I watch the other two movies that came up before.
Oh, the ones for the Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock. Yeah,
and want to know what the story is about and why all suddenly they're exiled. It's a good thing to rewatch those two so you get a good idea about what the story's about.
Go for Star Wars 2 and 3.
Star Trek.
Star Trek. I keep saying Star Wars. We watched Star Wars the other day.
No, we didn't watch Star Wars.
I did.
We watched Star Trek.
I did. No, I did. One of us did. I got Star Wars on the brain.
I think it's because...
you mentioned the car earlier. That's what it was. Oh, we're watching Star Wars. I run there, blah, blah. Yeah. The Abrams one. Yeah. You did. That's what got Star Trek 2 and 3. You probably ought to get a pack. We might have 1, 2, 3, 4 or something. So I would have a look at this movie. If you're aware of the other movie storylines, that's okay. But if you're not, I would go and look at 2, 3, and 4. If you can rent them off Amazon Prime or something rather, or somewhere else, do so, and you get the storyline happening really nice. Yeah. So it's because they do come together like sequels and prequels, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Although you may come, I think in the fourth Star Trek one, which came after this one. It didn't add on into the story.
No, it was a different storyline.
It was a different story.
Yeah, fresh storyline.
And after that, that would have been Star Trek Generations would have come after that one.
And then we started new guys.
Yeah, and then the one done by J.J. Abrams in 2009, I think it was. That's when he took over and he made it more of a prequel or requel, whatever they call it.
Whatever.
I don't know. I know for a fact.
Anyway.
It was not a bad one myself, but I still think he should really go back to film school to rethink his brain.
Look, okay, whatever. Okay, here we go, guys. 10. There you go.
I'm going to... I think I would rate this 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, the critics like it. It made it at the box office quite nicely. It's still popular.
Yeah, to this day, it's still the best.
And I like the fact that, I think one of the critics said, it's nice to see that make a movie without all the stuff out in space there, people shooting each other and blowing up spaceships and everything else. It had a good storyline based here pretty much on Earth, trying, like a sci-fi drama. Yeah, and it worked. Yeah. Yeah, it was an adventurous move, and it worked. I like it. Yeah,
I think I agree with you, Mike. I mean, instead of just having it all in space all the time, they're on the surface of a different world, back here,
back
world,
home,
back in the many years ago.
Yeah.
Instead of the current time that they filmed this, to make it more believable.
Anyway, we got to go. I got things to do, and it's getting a bit up to almost an hour of chit-chat here, and so we don't want to go. Sometimes we go overboard, but we don't do it out of board. We get so much to talk about sometimes.
Yeah, there's always something interesting to discuss about a movie, especially if you do it in depth.
Yeah. But like I said, there's so much about the special effects and the production. There are sites out there. And I go onto Wikipedia a lot because there's a lot of stuff in there. So if you go on Wikipedia for this, have a look at the production details and everything. See how much about the production itself, special effects, design. There's a page after page of what they got up to. And it's really interesting stuff.
So
I can't talk about it all now. Otherwise, you have me sitting here having your cocoa with me, you know.
Or Coke.
No, not Coke.
Yeah. Like share a Coke with you?
Okay.
Like the poem?
Okay. No Coca-Cola, no product placement here.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for listening to our latest podcast, everyone. And I hope you guys definitely check it out and let us know in the comments.
It's a good watch. I reckon it's one of the better movies.
I think so.
I'll have to revisit Wrath of Khan though, and the other one, but I think still it holds the same as a better movie.
Yeah. Sorry we couldn't review all the saga.
No, we don't do all because I mean. Yeah, we just a bit more of a tribute to Nichelle.
And all the remaining people who
and the other ones have passed away as well. So it's
yes,
it's mindful these people aren't immortals, but they're only immortal in film.
Well, to me, Mike, they haven't. They're not gone. They're gone on to their biggest adventure up there.
They boldly go where all the other good people have already been. No.
But that's how I see it. They're not gone. They're just in outer space searching for the next big adventure.
Exactly. Hey, guys.
So thanks for listening to our latest podcast, everyone. And I hope you guys do be sure to watch this, listen to this review, and be sure to remember the actors from who made these movies and try to be respectful about them and think well of them.
And for those of you who are inclined to do so, offer up a prayer for Nichelle.
And her family.
And her family, because it is sad to be taken. But she wasn't young, but still, it's not nice to go.
But she's not gone. She's just on her next big adventure.
Yeah, she's gone off on adventures again.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening to our latest podcast, everyone. And this is Sarah Stephenson.
And Michael.
Saying see you guys around. Bye
for
now.
Bye, guys.